Bet horse racing on DRF Bets. We'll match your first deposit of $200. Get free expert picks and past performances, plus weekly cash back. All from Daily Racing Form, the most trusted name in horse racing.
Hi everyone, David Aragona here for another edition of the TimeformUS Road to the Derby series. Big weekend coming up with 3 Derby preps taking place at 3 different venues, New York, California, and in this video we're going to take a look at Florida's Derby prep on Saturday. It is the Grade 3 Holy Bull at Gulfstream Park going off as race 12 on their Saturday card, and it's not the strongest edition of the Holy Bull that we've ever seen, but the winner of this race is going to earn 20 Kentucky Derby qualifying points towards a start in the Run for the Roses. And here you see the field of 8 runners signed on here. I would imagine that the number 4 Cyclone Mischief will be the morning line favorite in this race. Haven't yet seen the morning line come out for this one, but Cyclone Mischief looks like the strongest contender coming in here off a big allowance score for trainer Dale Romans. His biggest competition does appear to come from the outside draw number 8 Rocket Can. We're going to talk about both of those major contenders in greater detail in just a little bit, but before we get to that, let's take a look at the TimeformUS pace projector for this race. And no characterization regarding a fast or slow pace, but the pace projector does depict the number 6 Legacy Isle on the front end. Wouldn't be a big surprise to see this horse go forward. He did show speed en route to his first place finish, although disqualified out of first in the Mucho Macho Man last time, so he should show some early speed. Not sure what we're going to get from the number 5 Mr. Bob. He's shown a variety of running styles in his races, came from off the pace last time, but is putting blinkers on and has shown better early speed at different points earlier in his career. And then you've got that number 4 Cyclone Mischief, who doesn't need to be in front, has shown good tactical speed in all of his prior races, so he's definitely one that figures to be part of the pace in this race. And before we check out the contenders, let's take a look at one of the new features in TimeformUS. That is the finish projector, which you can find by navigating to your DRF mobile PPs and tapping on that TimeformUS tab. And the finish projector for this race is basically determined by the TimeformUS algorithm, taking into account a number of different factors, including the pace projector and speed figures, and actually has the number 8 Rocket Can coming out on top here over that likely favorite, the number 4 Cyclone Mischief. And when we get to my picks a little bit later, we'll see if I agree with that assessment. Well, let's dive into some of these major contenders, and we'll begin with Cyclone Mischief, who is likely to go favorite in here. We'll take a look at that allowance race that he ran last time when he won so impressively, crossing the wire nearly 6 lengths ahead of his competition. But this was a really big step forward for this horse. He was a little bit disappointing in his prior start in the Kentucky Jockey Club when he got to set a slow pace and just didn't quite finish off that race. Not the case here, as he made a pretty convincing move coming to the quarter pole and drew off to a commanding score. There were some horses in this race from the Todd Pletcher barn that were expected to step forward and maybe didn't really improve the way that a lot of people expected them to. So maybe that allowance race wasn't quite as strong as it appeared coming in, but Cyclone Mischief nevertheless earned a respectable 104 TimeformUS speed figure that makes him one of the fastest horses in this race. He broke his maiden going the mile in the 16th distance 3 back, so stretching back out around 2 turns is not supposed to be a big problem for him. I guess some people might be concerned about the fact that he ran that big speed figure last time on Lasix, and now he has to come off Lasix to contest this Derby prep, but I don't put too much stock in that until we really get evidence that horses need Lasix. He just seems like a horse that's 3 years old who is taking natural steps forward with his development. But I did find a pretty positive stat for his trainer, Dale Romans, with regard to Cyclone Mischief's chances in this race, with last out winners on the dirt at odds of 3-1 or less over the past 5 years. Dale Romans is a really strong 14 for 34, 41% win rate with a $2.34 ROI. Dale Romans is not the kind of trainer that you think of as a really positive statistic trainer, but when he gets these horses into form and they come back at short prices, they tend to deliver. So I think you can expect a good effort out of Cyclone Mischief in this Holy Bull. His main rival does figure to be the number 8 Rocket Can, and this is a horse who I actually had some affinity for when he made his first couple of starts at Saratoga. I think I liked him in both of those races. Didn't really pan out in either of those sprint races, but clearly the stretch out in distance the last couple of times at Churchill Downs has really allowed this horse to shine. He broke his maiden in the slop 2-back, pulling away from a decent field to win by 2 lengths, and then took a nice step forward last time back on fast going that same mile in the 16th distance against Allowance Company. Was pretty game to be second that day at a Confidence Game, who we did see come back and finish a decent third in the Lecomte Stakes in his next start. That 106 TimeformUS speed figure is actually a couple points higher than the number that Cyclone Mischief got in his most recent allowance victory. So Rocket Cam seems like he is very much in the mix here, especially just given the lower quality nature of this race than what we're typically accustomed to in some of these Derby preps. I think you have to consider this horse a major contender, and distance is obviously not a problem based on the last couple of races. And even though he's a son of Into Mischief, like Cyclone Mischief, both of these are progeny of Into Mischief, there's plenty of stamina on the dam side for Rocket Can. So I think even longer distances in the future are going to suit this Bill Mott trainee. Let's take a look at some of the horses that are coming out of the local prep for this. The Mucho Macho Man, which was run on New Year's Day at Gulfstream Park. We'll check out the stretch run of that race. And the horse that's going to cross the wire first is the number 1, Legacy Isle, who you see coming into the stretch with the lead. But he's going to bother the number 4, Dreaming of Kona, that is ranging up alongside of him in the late stages here. Also check out to the left of the screen, though, Lord Miles. He is that bay with the low head carriage who's making that run in the red cap on the outside. He's going to be finishing best of all to just miss getting up for second in this race. And Legacy Isle, he did set a fast pace last time, so I suppose he had a right to get a little bit leg weary in the late stages of that race. The disqualification did seem to be fairly legitimate, but he did run a reasonably strong 97 TimeformUS speed figure that day. He's obviously going to have to do better if he's going to get on terms with horses like Cyclone Mischief or Rocket Can, and he'll have to do so stretching out around the 2 turns for the first time. So I think we're going to have to see an improved effort out of Legacy Isle if he's going to take this field from gate to wire. As for Lord Miles, who was the closing third in that Mucho Macho Man, he did benefit from that fast pace as he was picking up pieces at the end, but he does seem like one that's supposed to get better with added ground. He's a son of Curlin. There's some stamina on the dam side. His dam is actually a half-sister to Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies winner Caledonia Road, so definitely bred to go 2 turns. Safi Joseph is adding the blinkers this time, hoping to perhaps add a little bit more tactical speed to this horse's arsenal. And he does pick up Irad Ortiz for this race. So definitely some things to like about Lord Miles, but he's just going to have to run a faster race because that top speed figure of 91 is just not going to quite cut it against this field. And then the other horse to mention coming out of the Mucho Macho Man is Mr. Bob. He's one of the horses that could potentially be involved in the pace if he's able to regain some of the tactical speed that he showed in his early sprint races. But he had none of that last time when he was last down the backstretch of the Mucho Macho Man. Did make some mild progress late, but was really just picking up pieces in a race that was falling apart, as you see those red color-coded TimeformUS pace figures for the Mucho Macho Man. So just feels like he's going to have to run a much better race than he ever has before, especially on the stretch out and distance, if he's going to be competitive with this field. One more horse that some might consider in this race is the number 3 Shadow Dragon. Let's take a look at his maiden breaking score when he won his debut at Belmont at the Big A, or Aqueduct, back at the end of September. He does make a big eye-catching late run to get up for the victory this day. You can see he's all the way on the left of the screen right now, and he's going to run past 8 horses in the span of the stretch to get up for the victory here. But this was a race that featured a pretty fast early pace, so he definitely got the right setup as he makes this big run from off the pace to get up for the victory. And he was just a little bit disappointing last time when he stretched out to the mile distance against New York breds in the Sleepy Hollow Stakes. That race didn't feature much pace, and Shadow Dragon was at least placed a little bit closer to the lead in the early stages, but he just lacked that potent late kick that we had seen from him on debut, going the longer distance. And as a son of Army Mule, I think you have to be a little bit concerned that maybe this is not a horse that's going to get better with added distance. And he's, like others in this field, is just going to have to run a much faster speed figure than he ever has before if he's going to upset the 2 favorites in here. So let's throw out my picks for the Holy Bull, and I'm not getting too creative in this spot. I'm going to pick the two favorites on top, but just kind of flip-flop them and put the horse that I think will be the slightly bigger price as my top pick. That is the number 8 Rocket Can. Like I said, I've had a bit of affinity for this horse. I think that he really has taken a step forward in those 2 recent starts in Kentucky, and just feels like he's supposed to work out a pretty good stalking trip from his outside post in this 8-horse field. Nothing against Cyclone Mischief. I expect him to show up with a good effort here. He's the kind of horse that seems to make his own good trips, but just want to see it again from him after beating that field of suspect quality against Allowance Company last time out. So it's the number 8 Rocket Can for me in the Holy Bull Stakes on Saturday at Gulfstream Park. Good luck if you're playing the races this weekend.